When the Broncos 2020 schedule came out last week, the very first matchup I looked for was Broncos and Chiefs. The Chiefs will come to town week 7 before the Broncos head to Arrowhead for week 13 for the big Sunday night football showdown. Given the weapons the Broncos added over this offseason and the lack of turnover the Chiefs had, how do you think Denver will stack up against the Kansas City Chiefs this season?
Well, I tried to sneak that question to Drew Lock in an interview for NFL Network last week, Alexis, where I was like, do you think you got the firepower now? And he was like, oh, I'm not going down that road. I'm not going to give anybody a quote that's going to say we do. He brought up 2 great points. One, he said the continuity that they have and the number of games that all of those guys have played together over the last couple of seasons with all the success that they have in place there. He said that's what we're looking to get here in Denver. And he said we don't have that yet, but I do think we have the potential with the talent we have to eventually get to that point. I think these are 2 big measuring stick games for the Denver Broncos. One, the Week 7 matchup is your first divisional game, and it's against the defending Super Bowl champs. That's huge. And then when you have the Sunday night game later in the season, to me, if I'm Drew Lock and company, I want to say, listen, this is a matchup everybody's going to want to see with Patrick Mahomes. Not just Pat Mahomes going against Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes going against Deshaun Watson. I want to throw my name in the ring as the other guy that goes up against Patrick Mahomes, and I'm going to do it twice a year to be part of that conversation. I think that Sunday night game will give him the opportunity to show everybody that Denver is going to be a contender with the Chiefs moving forward with this young unit.
Well, this is where I think the Broncos, by that time, by the first game against the Chiefs, there's a chance they're undefeated. Now, how likely is that? We could debate and discuss that all the time. But you go in, you got a lot of confidence. As Dave will tell you, when you're a confident team, you can win a lot of football games. You got to put up a fight against the Chiefs. And I think just from a personal standpoint, a personnel standpoint, they have more firepower than the Chiefs. But it comes down to who's running the hottest. Obviously, Eric Bieniemy, Andy Reid, Pat Mahomes, they've got that offense clicking, 10 of 11 starters returning for the Chiefs. So it's not just how much firepower, it's how is that used, how comfortable are they working together. By that time, let's say the Broncos, maybe not undefeated, but 4-2 or whatever going into week 7. Okay, lots of confidence. They should be clicking on all cylinders, and that to me comes down to Pat Shurmur. How much does he get out of this offense? How ready are they at that time? And then we'll see what kind of a fight they can put up.
Yeah, I would say that, from a competitive standpoint, the Broncos, when you look at how this series has gone, 9 straight wins for the Chiefs, I mean, that if that doesn't rankle you as a player, then you're probably in the wrong profession, right? I mean, 2 of the last 3 home games the Broncos and the Chiefs have played, last year notwithstanding, but the previous 2 games, the Broncos had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, right, and had a 1st and 30 and defensively, couldn't get off the field. The Chiefs went down and scored, and then they lose a game in overtime. So, I mean, if you're again, it gets back to being sort of what your aspirations are. If you're a playoff caliber team, if you really believe that about yourself, then this is a game when you host the Chiefs that you've got to make a stand and say, okay, enough of this. This 9-game winning streak is going to end. I don't care how we do this. And I do think what both Cecil and James said will ring true. This to me is a game that the Broncos offense has to show up in a big way. You don't have to score 50 points, but you can't score 10, and you can't score 17, and you can't score 21, right? You've got to help your defense out, and as they say, play in concert. So to me, that's a huge game, no question about it.
Looking forward to it, but also looking forward to week 10. It'll be the very first time the Broncos will visit Las Vegas and the Raiders. Are you guys as excited for that Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs matchup as I am?
I'm excited to go to Vegas. I mean, come on. I mean, that's what I want to do. I want to go to Vegas and see that stadium and see that matchup. But I think the most interesting part about it, you're right, Alexis, is how does Jerry Jeudy's mentality come in going, the Raiders passed on me, and they went Henry Ruggs instead of me. And I want to show them why they should have picked me instead of Henry Ruggs. That's the way I would approach it if I was Jerry Jeudy. And again, it's teammates and friends, former guys at Alabama. I think it's really an interesting dynamic. But I think for Jerry Jeudy, you got to come in and go, you should have picked me instead of Henry Ruggs.
Jerry Jeudy, the #1 receiver in the best receiving class in NFL history. So, yeah, he's going to have something to prove. And then for me, it comes down to who's throwing him the ball. Is it Derek Carr by that time still, or is it Marcus Mariota? It doesn't matter. Broncos have a better quarterback situation with Drew Lock. So, yeah, it's maybe a little bit of the shine. The luster is off of it, but Raiders-Broncos still fun to watch.
I'm sort of like James. I think I'm anxious to go to Vegas and first of all see if Vegas is reopened by that time, right? I mean, everything is just like the rest of the country, pretty much shut down. But that's a game the Broncos, again, when you talk about being a playoff caliber team, which every single segment I mentioned that, if you're really going to be that, you got to find a way to win 4+ games on the road. You can go looking down the schedule as to which ones might be tougher or not. But, I mean, they have played very good against the Raiders. And I think last year could have found a way to win even in Oakland in that season opener. Didn't play well enough to do it, but had plenty of opportunities. So to me, that's a game the Broncos have to go out and find a way to win.
Dave, you've had a bird's eye view of that rivalry for decades. Do you think that it will be as intense now that the Raiders are in Vegas, or is it going to fizzle out?
I don't think it'll fizzle out, but I don't think it will be as intense. And frankly, I don't think it's been as intense the last decade or so. I mean, to have a rivalry, when you talk about the rivalry back in the days, both teams at times were pretty good. The Raiders have not been, the Broncos haven't been good the last 4 years, right? They haven't been in the playoffs. So the Raiders have been in the playoffs. I think they've had one winning season since 2002. I mean, that's some bad football. So, so the rivalry, I think now, from the Broncos standpoint, I think they look at the Chiefs, and understandably so, as the team that we have to find a way to beat.
He's excited for a new booth, though. I know he wants to get out of that booth from Oakland.
Yes, the one that has the water dripping through the ceiling on the equipment. I won't miss that one.
Disgusting. All right, week 11, the Riversless Chargers will come to the Mile High City, and that might be our very first glimpse of Drew Lock versus Justin Herbert. If the Chiefs have a strong grip on the AFC West title, does a wild card berth come down to which team between the Broncos and Chargers has the better quarterback?
Well, I do think the Chargers are a better team than most outsiders would give them. I do think there is plenty of talent on that roster. Now we're going to see where the quarterback position stands. And like Cecil said about the Raiders, who's throwing them the football, no matter how good Henry Ruggs and company are, well, no matter how good that great skill group is that's with the Chargers, who's throwing them the football. And when you don't know who your quarterback is, it always puts you at somewhat of a disadvantage. I would think by the time they roll around playing the Chargers, that the Denver Broncos offense is in a much better situation of continuity than, say, the Chargers are.
Yeah, it's about, keeping up and passing the Chargers within this division while the Chiefs sit on top for the time being. But to me, it comes down to, are the Chargers truly snake bit? Because we can go back to all their games last year and know that was a better football team than they put out there record-wise. So that's a real true threat for this Broncos team. Of course, Chris Harris Jr. out there now playing defense, and he's the third corner because their other two corners, Casey Hayward and Desmond King, are outstanding. So you've got a challenge. You've got a real test with the Chargers to, go to that wild card spot. But Dave can speak to this. Broncos country is about playoffs. Broncos country, the way this team is built, the way this team needs to be is about playoff winning football. Not, hey, we're glad we got in the extra wild card. That's not the Broncos way. The Broncos way is higher level, higher goals, and they're on their way to get back. But you have to get past the Chargers to do that.
And I think to close it out, I think the interesting thing here is for Broncos fans, I think they look at the Chargers as a team the Broncos should beat. And I would suggest that the Chargers probably look at the Broncos exactly the same way, right? I mean, the Broncos the last 4 years, teams have come into Denver. They've beaten the Broncos. The Broncos have not been what they were, certainly back in 2015. So this is an important year from a confidence standpoint in my book, in terms of how the players actually view themselves. Do we believe that we're going to go out and win every single time we take the field? Because even though fans expect that all players think that, I'm telling you, that's not the case with every NFL team.